Remember when Canadian television felt different, slower, kinder, a little quirky, a little homemade, but filled with heart? Back before streaming, before algorithms, before binge-watching, we had real personalities, local shows, and a small but mighty TV culture that shaped who we were. Tonight we're diving into another 20 classic Canadian TV shows we'll never forget. Programs that raised us, entertained us, and left their fingerprints on our childhoods and culture. So settle in, because if you grew up in Canada, these memories are about to come rushing back. Saturday night at the movies with Elwy Yost before Netflix, before DVDs, before even VHS for most people. Your movie night began with one man, Elwy Yost. Every Saturday evening, CBC's Ontario network transformed into a warm, cozy movie hall, and Elwy was your host. He didn't just play films, he told stories about them, behind-the-scenes trivia, interviews, anecdotes, a masterclass in film appreciation wrapped inside a friendly, dad-like personality. His passion was infectious. And for so many Canadians, Elwy Yost wasn't just a host. He was the man who taught us how to love movies. Little Mosque on the Prairie. When it debuted in 2007, nobody expected a Canadian sitcom about a Muslim community in small-town Saskatchewan to become a global hit. But Little Mosque on the Prairie did exactly that. Warm, funny, gentle, and endlessly human. It showed Canada at its best, communities learning, laughing, and growing together. The show balanced cultural insight with classic sitcom charm, and it became a landmark in Canadian TV history, proving that our stories, even small-town ones, can resonate around the world. Catwalk. Ah yes, the 90s time capsule you completely forgot existed. Catwalk followed a group of young musicians trying to make it big in the Toronto indie scene. It was stylish, dramatic, very much music era, and packed with that unmistakable 90s Canadian vibe. Slightly edgy, slightly awkward, but totally earnest. And yes, that really was Nicole DeBoer and Neve Campbell before they became stars. If you watch this after school, you're officially an OG Canadian 90s kid. Puppets Who Kill, one of the strangest, darkest, and most uniquely Canadian comedies ever made. Puppets Who Kill followed 4 puppet criminals living in a halfway house as they attempted and failed to fit into society. It was edgy, satirical, absurd, and very much the kind of show you couldn't believe was actually airing on Canadian TV. But underneath the chaos was clever writing and surprisingly sharp social commentary. A true cult classic that could only come from Canada. Electric Circus. If you were alive in the 90s, chances are you stumbled across Electric Circus at least once and immediately wondered, what am I watching? Broadcast live from Toronto's Much Music Studios, it wasn't just a dance show. It was a neon-soaked, late-night, hyper-Canadian cultural phenomenon. Club kids, dancers, fashion experiments, street interviews. Every Friday night, EC turned Queen Street into a glowing, chaotic party. And somehow, it became essential Canadian viewing. It was loud, colorful, and unapologetically weird. And that's exactly why we loved it. A good rockin' tonight. Before YouTube, before streaming, before music was available 24/7, we had Good Rockin' Tonight, Canada's very own late-night music video show, hosted by the legendary Terry David Mulligan. This program was pure energy, interviews with rising artists, backstage stories, and of course, the music videos that defined an era. From early Canadian rock to international hits, Good Rockin' became the soundtrack of Friday nights. And for so many Canadian teens, this show was their doorway into the world of music. The New Music, one of the earliest and most influential music journalism shows ever created, period. The New Music wasn't just about songs or interviews. It treated music like culture, politics, and art all wrapped together. It went deeper than Much Music, deeper than MTV, and brought a level of intelligence and seriousness rarely seen in music TV. Hosted by names like Gene Beaker and J.D. Roberts, the show shaped how Canadians understood pop culture, and its style can still be seen in music documentaries today, a groundbreaking piece of Canadian media history. The Kids of Degrassi Street. Long before Degrassi Junior High, long before Degrassi The Next Generation, there was the show that started it all, The Kids of Degrassi Street. Filmed on real streets with real kids who talked like actual kids, the series was groundbreaking for one reason. It treated childhood seriously. No laugh track, no overacting. Just honest stories about life, friendship, and growing up in Toronto. This little series would eventually evolve into one of Canada's most important TV franchises. But it all began right here, on Degrassi Street. Reach for the Top school didn't always feel exciting, but Reach for the Top somehow made academics look dramatic. Hosted by Canadian legends like Alex Trebek in its early days, this quiz show put high school teams head-to-head in a battle of knowledge. Math, history, geography, science, everything was fair game. The music, the pacing, the seriousness. It made you feel like these students were competing for the fate of the country. A proudly Canadian tradition, and one that inspired generations of young trivia nerds. Matt and Jenny set in 19th century Canada. Matt and Jenny followed two British siblings trying to survive and build a life in the rugged New World. It was historical, emotional, and quietly thrilling. The kind of storytelling Canada excelled at before budgets got bigger. The landscapes, the gentle pacing, the sense of adventure, it captured what early Canadian TV did best. Simple stories told with heart. If you watched this in the late 70s or early 80s, you'll remember the feeling of being transported to another time. Spirit Bay, one of the most important and groundbreaking Canadian shows ever made. Spirit Bay was the first Indigenous-focused drama series in Canada, produced in collaboration with the Ontario Ojibwe community of Lake Superior. It told real stories, community stories, with Indigenous actors, Indigenous writers, and Indigenous voices at the center. It wasn't flashy or sensational. It was authentic. And for many young viewers, it was the first time they ever saw Indigenous life portrayed with such dignity and honesty on TV. A true milestone in Canadian media. The David Steinberg Show, before he became one of the most respected comedians and directors in North America, David Steinberg starred in his own quirky CBC variety sitcom hybrid. The David Steinberg Show blended sketches, backstage segments, and meta-humor years before it was common. Think of it as a Canadian cousin to The Larry Sanders Show, but made decades earlier. With appearances from early comedy greats, including many who would end up on SCTV, this show was a hidden gem from the golden age of Canadian comedy. Take 30. For over 2 decades, Take 30 was the place where Canadians went for conversation, lifestyle stories, interviews, and genuine human moments. Long before talk shows became loud and sensational, Take 30 offered thoughtful segments on everyday life, from parenting to cooking to social issues, all delivered with warmth and curiosity. Hosted by icons like Adrian Clarkson and Paul Soles, it became a trusted companion in Canadian homes, a true CBC classic that shaped daytime TV for a generation. King of Kensington. Sometimes a show becomes iconic not because it's flashy, but because it feels like home. King of Kensington was exactly that. Al Waxman played Larry King, not the talk show host, but a big-hearted neighborhood problem solver who always tried to do right by the people around him. Set in Toronto's Kensington market, it captured the multicultural, messy, lovable spirit of the city long before that became a trademark of Canadian TV. It wasn't just a sitcom, it was a portrait of 1970s Canada, the Edison twins. This one takes you straight back to after-school TV in the 80s. The Edison twins followed Tom and Annie, two brilliant siblings who solved problems using creativity, curiosity, and a whole lot of science. Every episode ended with a real-life experiment which made kids feel like they could try it too. It was educational without ever feeling boring, a perfect example of Canada's ability to make smart TV fun. A warm, clever classic that still holds up today. Passepartout. For children in Quebec, few shows were more beloved or more formative than Passepartout. With its colorful puppets, gentle storytelling, and whimsical songs, it helped an entire generation learn French, understand emotions, and navigate early childhood. Its characters, Passemontagne, Passecarreau, and Passepartout, remain cultural icons in Quebec to this day. A cornerstone of French-Canadian educational television and a true treasure of the 70s and 80s. Smith and Smith, before The Red Green Show, became a Canadian institution. Its creators, Steve and Morag Smith, starred together in the sketch comedy series Smith and Smith. It was quirky, musical, homemade, and filled with that charming, slightly absurd humor that would later make Red Green famous. From comedy songs to character skits, the show was a family effort in the truest sense, and one of the hidden gems of early Canadian sketch TV. And there you have it, another journey through the television that shaped us. These weren't just shows. They were moments, memories, little pieces of who we were growing up in Canada, back when the TV schedule shaped our evenings, back when you couldn't rewind, pause, or binge. You simply tuned in, and whatever was on became part of your life. If any of these titles brought back a smile, a forgotten theme song, or a memory you haven't thought about in years, then our trip through classic Canadian TV has done its job. Thank you for joining me on this nostalgic ride. And don't worry, there are still so many more Canadian shows to rediscover. Until next time, take care and keep the memories alive.